Okay, thank you guys for coming. This is the Photographers and Cosplayers Working Together panel, so we can cultivate really good photo shoot experiences, not just while we're shooting, but also kind of in the aftermath of that, and so that the whole experience is a really good experience, from the setup and the instigation of the photo shoot idea to the photos are finished and we have them and they're great. And so we really want to talk about how to go through that entire experience and have it be really successful. So I know that the program says that the cosplayer Etaru and the photographer Fidoi would also be on this panel. For some various reasons they won't be joining us. Etaru might come eventually. Fidoi has some family issues that he won't be able to make it today. So that just clears up that. So we are going to do some introductions. Do you want to start at that end of the table? Who are we?
Hi, I'm Foxberry. I'm a cosplayer photographer. I currently attend the Academy of Art for Photography, and I've done it for, oh my gosh, almost 3 years now. Cosplaying for about 4 years.
I'm OscarC Photography. I occasionally cosplay, but usually I'm on the other side of the camera shooting. This is my prop.
So legit. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've been doing shoots. I did my first cosplay shooting at Dragon Con about 10, 11 years now, and have been working my way up from teeny point and shoots to bigger cameras.
So my name is Yukari Kaiba. I have been cosplaying since 2005. Actually, my first time was here at Fanime. And my area of expertise is prop making.
I am Bekalou, and I've been cosplaying since 2008. And I like to spread out my expertise between sewing and prop making. And a lot of people in this area will tell you that I specialize in setting things on fire. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start out this panel by talking about annoying things that cosplayers and photographers do that we are going to try to steer away from. So Oscar, why don't you take it away with annoying things that cosplayers do? Forgetting your script.
Okay. Getting the script. Okay.
Here's just the first one.
Thank you. Number one, being late, or worse, canceling on short notice, or even worse than that, canceling and not telling the photographer. When you call them 5, 10 minutes after your shoot was supposed to start, and they say, oh yeah, I couldn't make it to that con. What? Why didn't you tell me this before? Or I decided I'm bored and I decided I just wanted to do something else. It's like, canceling is okay, things happen. Let the photographer know as soon as you know. Make sure you have contact information at con for them. 2, not knowing the character being cosplayed. The photographer needs to know, is this a dark, broody character? Is this a happy, cheerful character? If the cosplayer shows up and says, and you ask, what pose is good for this? And they're like, I don't know. Well, cosplayer just spent hours, days, weeks, months sewing the outfit. They should know the character, they should have poses ready. 3, costumes that don't reflect the cosplayer's best work. I hate shooting costumes that look like they were sewn the night before. I don't care if they really were sewn the night before. I don't care when you made it, as long as it doesn't look like it was sewn the night before. Different cosplayers have different ability levels, and I can appreciate that. But if it looks like it wasn't your best work and it was just sloppy, something you threw together at the last minute, then it decreases my motivation to put in my best effort to shoot it if you couldn't put in your best effort to make it. 4, cosplayers that inadvertently show more than they mean to. If you're wearing a revealing costume, fashion tape and other tricks like that to make sure you don't actually accidentally flash the camera with more than you want. Sometimes it can be photoshopped out. Sometimes that photoshopping takes a really long time. Sometimes a really nice shot has to be thrown out because there's no way to Photoshop out and it's just not something that can be posted. Doubly so if you're underage. Please really be careful with that. I don't want child porn on my camera. 5, cosplayers without makeup, or with makeup on their, so without makeup is the most obvious one, but makeup on their face that doesn't match the rest of their exposed skin. If your skin is normally fairly dark and you make your face very pale, it's going to look weird, especially if you have a pose like this, it's going to look really weird. Also, if you make your face more magenta reddish and your skin is more greenish, then I can either make your skin look a Martian, or I can make your face look really sunburned. Or I'm going to spend a lot of time in Photoshop trying to even out, which I can do for 1 or 2 photos, I'm not going to do for 15. So try to have your face makeup match the rest of your makeup. Okay?
No, I want the script.
Oh, script. I have a script.
Okay. So annoying things that photographers do is also being late and unprepared. I think that's our first one for both. Even if you're present on time, it would be really nice if you're ready to shoot, because I know that with equipment it takes a long time to set up. And second one is poor communication and being unreachable, or not letting cosplayers know about change time or cancellations. I know that it's really hard for us to answer our phones at cons sometimes, but if you know that you're not going to be able to answer your phone, or that it's going to, or you're going to be doing a shoot and won't be able to pick up your phone, make sure you text before that and give enough information so that we can be in the right place at the right time. Because I know things change always at con because people are late or people take a long time, and so things are just going to change. I've never been to a convention where something didn't get thrown up in the air. It's just how that happens. But try to be available. Taking a long time to process your shoots. I know that we all have things going on in our lives, but if you're going to do a photo shoot, it would be nice that you would know beforehand that you're going to have time after to process those photos, because it's really exciting to do a photo shoot at a convention. I'm really excited to see the pictures afterward, but waiting for 6 months or a year or 2 years to get a photo shoot is kind of a bummer. I haven't had too many shoots that have taken 2 years to process, but it's just something that you want to do relatively quickly. Just make sure that you have time to schedule it in after the shoot. And then making unreasonable requests. Number 4, making unreasonable requests of cosplayers. This could be anything from suggesting that the cosplayer do a pose that's really out of character and doesn't make any sense, to doing something that the cosplayer is really not comfortable with. It could be like a yaoi shot with their friend that just makes things really weird, to if they're afraid of heights and they're in like 4-inch stiletto heels and they're standing on like a 6-foot ledge. That's not cool either. Don't do it. If the cosplayer says, no, I'm really not comfortable doing that, don't push it. That's one of the most annoying things that has happened to me in photo shoots, is when the photographer has this really great shot in mind and I'm just like, I can't do that. It will not be a good shot. And if I'm uncomfortable, then probably your shot won't look good anyway, and you'll just throw it out, or it will suck. And then I think the 5th one is poor location choices. You're the photographer, which means that it's basically your job to know what your lighting should be like and what your background should be like. So pick places, or pull the cosplayer out to places that are gonna make good pictures. Shooting in the middle of a convention hall is not a good idea. There's a million people in the background, the lighting usually sucks, and more often than not, it's just not gonna be a good photo shoot. But if you pull them out to the side, where maybe there's fewer people or there's kind of a scenic background, then that can look really cool. Okay, so I think we're going to move on from that to why do we do photo shoots at all? Basically, from the cosplayer's perspective, we do photo shoots because we spend a lot of time and money on these costumes, and we really want to commemorate them with nice pictures. So we can show our friends and show them off on the internet and be famous on the internet. And I think it's really important to do a photo shoot, to have like a set aside photo shoot rather than just hall photography, because hall photography is good to sort of commemorate your time at a con and show off your costume, but the photo shoot is, I think, a much more fun and finished experience. It feels like the costume is really finished when it's had some nice pictures taken of it. We're gonna also mention that we're gonna take questions at the end of the panel. So just if you come up with a question, hold it, and we will hopefully have some time to talk about that later. Okay, and so, yeah, I mean, basically, back to track. Differences between photo shoots and con coverage is, con coverage is nice, but I think there's a difference between a nice setup, well-lit, well-located photo shoot than just in the convention hall. Oh.
Okay. For photographers, we, sorry. When it comes to photo shoots versus hall cosplay, it's pretty much the same way. When you set up a photo shoot, you get a longer time with the cosplayer, and you can really show how that costume sparkles and just shines. Usually when you're walking through the hall, you're just snapping your camera on auto and flashing it really quick and running off. Photo shoots, there tends to be more art involved in a way, I suppose. And basically the difference between like at con shoots and off con shoots. When you're off the con, you can usually do location lights, like maybe at Golden Gate Park, or if you even have a studio. I've done some studio work personally with cosplayers, and it's a little bit more relaxed, it feels, and they usually take a bit longer.
Oh, okay. So, next time we're going to talk about, how do we go about setting up a shoot? So from the cosplayer's perspective, I know most of us are familiar with using the internet, so cosplay forums are a really good way to kind of, as a general search start. You can put up a posting like, hey, I'm looking for a photographer to shoot costume X at con Y. If anyone's interested, let me know. You could also find reviews of photographers that could see who people shot with before. You could also maybe ask your friends if they have a photographer they know and see if they can really hook you up with a shoot. Like, hey, I know you shot with, Oscar. Is there any way that maybe you could try to hook up a photo shoot with me for him? Because you like to shoot with different people. Also really important though, if you're shooting with a photographer you've never shot with before, don't go off by yourself, ever. Not saying that everyone's creepy, but it's just better to be safe than sorry. So it's always, bring a friend to come with you, especially if you're going off-site at a convention, if you're not shooting in the center and you're going off to, the park across the street or a building further down or whatever like that. So you always want to be safe and bring a buddy with you.
So, from a photographer point of view, pretty much the same thing. Look on forums. Cosplay gatherings are good. Go to, we have NorCal gatherings quarterly. We have the Bay Area conventions monthly gatherings. There's lots of other gatherings. Great places to meet photographers and then say, hey, I really like your photos. Can we set up a shoot outside of it? Hallway shooting is a great place to meet new people. Is if you go around and shoot people, you see costumes you like, introduce yourself, give them your card. And you should have a card if you're doing hallway shooting. And then follow up with them later if there's and say, hey, you really loved your cosplay at Fanime. Hey, maybe at a gathering or sometime we can get together. Again, just like with cosplayers, don't go off with a cosplayer just by yourself. You're probably carrying some expensive gear. Going off by person with a person you don't know by yourself, carrying expensive gear, not a good idea. So really, if a shoot minimum, if it's people you don't know, 4 people, 2 on the photographer side, 2 on the cosplayer side, just for safety. Also, now you have 2 lighting assistants.
Yeah.
If they can come.
And then do you need fancy gear to do a photo shoot? No. I had a panel yesterday more on this, but every camera is good at something. Every camera has its strong points and weak points. Even this camera has weak points, quite a number of them actually. When you do shoots, learn your camera, figure out what your camera is good at, and take advantage of that. If your camera really sucks at night shots, don't do nighttime shoots. This may sound obvious, but people try it. If your camera only has a pop-up flash, then use natural light or reflector, and so on. I'd talk more about this for an hour, and I did yesterday, so I'm going to shut up now.
Mechanics and what to expect for photographer's point of view. Model releases. We're going to get a little bit more over this later, but just in brief, it's basically a waiver you sign as a model that allows the photographer to take your picture. They're actually really important for both cosplayer and a photographer. Cosplayers, have your poses ready. Nothing's more sucky than having someone who doesn't know their character, and considering I'm a cosplayer as well, I mean, it goes both ways. I try to know my character, so make it a little bit easier on photographers, know your poses. But at the same time, if you're a photographer, you should at least know several basic poses. There's a lot of characters who don't have many poses actually, so like I guess characters from Hitalia, those types of characters. Try to pretty much know the basic poses. There's actually some pose books online you can actually find as well. Lighting gear. A good thing to have with you is pretty much an off-camera flash. They're a lot better than these little pop-up cameras, pop-up flashes. And even if you have one of these, you can make diffusers and stuff. They're like little, you can actually make them out of a cigarette box and just pop it on top of it. They diffuse a light. It's not the best ideal, but it's still something. You can also, if you actually have the money, you can actually use strobes with capacitors. They're basically studio lights that you can take on location. Photographers also, make sure you have spares. Spares of pretty much everything, SD cards, batteries. Spare camera would be nice too, but not all of us can afford a spare camera. Even an extra point and shoot. Heck, I left my camera the other day, last night, back in the hotel, and I didn't want to carry it, and I found a character that I really take a photo of, and I just grabbed my iPhone.
And talk about camera strengths and weaknesses. The biggest strength of a camera phone is that you have it everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can take spontaneous photos. Take advantage of that. That's one of the strong points of this. This is really, really great. This camera, big weak point is I have to remember to put the lens on and carry it around, and it's heavy.
Yeah.
So I can't do, and when I pointed at you, so this is kind of the smaller ones, put a bigger lens on here especially. I can't do candidates with it. Believe me, if I'm pointing it at you, you know. So every camera has strong points and weak points, even these. Okay, sorry.
So once you have set up your shoot and you are there on time and you have found a location, we are going to pose the model. And so cosplayers, it's important to have poses ready, as Foxberry just said. And so before the shoot, observe what your character does. I know that cosplayers often get caught up in making costumes and don't actually spend as much time reading manga and watching the anime that they are cosplaying from. But it's kind of important to go back to even reference pictures on Google and just see what the character does and how they move, so that you can be prepared and ready and just get right into it rather than being like, I don't know what to do. So it is, practice in the mirror. It's not weird. If you have like a full-length mirror, and just practice standing once you put your costume on, and like practice moving in it. A lot of these costumes kind of impair our movement, and so poses that we would want to do, we can't because we can't move, and that happens pretty often. So know what your limits are. If you need different undergarments beforehand, know that and bring them and wear them. It's just important to be prepared for people taking your picture. And if you end up with a bunch of pictures online of stuff showing that you are not happy with, then that's gonna kind of put a damper on your whole photo shoot experience. So it's good just to have poses ready, know how to move, know what you're doing in your costume. And it also prevents wardrobe malfunctions. If you're gonna do a pose that might break your costume, don't do that pose. And then you don't have to fix your costume. But it is good also for photographers to have a basic set of poses, because I know that a lot of cosplayers, you know, as Foxberry said, we don't always have a lot of different poses to do. So it's good just to have, especially for new cosplayers that haven't done too many photo shoots before, just to have some really basic, generic poses for all cosplayers to do. Like any male character would do this pose, any female character would do this pose. And so it's good to start off with that kind of thing. And if you're with a more experienced cosplayer, they should just get right into it. And this also goes into location, because if we pick a nice location that the character would interact with, and that gives you more scope of pictures to take, more poses to do. Whereas if you're like out in the middle of the convention center with nothing to sit on and nothing to look at, there's very little you can do standing in the middle of a hallway than if you could do it in the middle of a park or in a forest, that the character could climb on things or look at things or touch things, or it would just make more sense. And so that all kind of posing goes with location, and it is kind of an interesting combination, and you can get some really cool pictures. So there's that.
Just to add in really quick, also besides posing, if you're someone that's going to be having a prop with you, know your limit and your range with it. It's really important, especially if you get pulled aside for hallway photos. You want to make sure you're not going to be smacking anybody with your sword or your 6-foot spear or your really big wingspans, you know, because you don't want to break it, and you don't want someone to walk in and accidentally break it, because then your people are both unhappy and it's just all bad. So make sure you know the limits and the range of your props. And fan art is also a really good place to go and find inspiration from, you know, because you have the shows and the manga to look at, but if you look at fan art, you get a lot more dynamic pose ideas. So I personally take a look at a lot of fan art to get more ideas other than just going back and making screen caps of the show or looking back at pages in a manga. So fan art's also a really good inspiration source.
Thanks, Yukari. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about etiquette during the shoot. When is it appropriate to ask for a photo shoot?
It is, well, I can tell you when it's not appropriate.
Oh, yeah.
That always seems to be really a lot easier. If we're sitting down and we're eating or talking on the phone, or we look tired, you probably shouldn't ask us for a photo. We're off the clock, just to kind of put it in easy speak. Just because, I mean, you don't want a picture of us with like our mouths like halfway open with food. That's just not attractive, and we don't want to see that online later and be like, oh my god, who took this photo? Why didn't they just ask me when I was available and, you know, on the clock and ready to shoot? If we're walking around, obviously, you know, not really doing anything, yeah, come up and if anything, please ask. Don't just like stand off in the corner and be like sniper photos. Like we wouldn't be making these and going through all the trouble if we didn't want our pictures taken. And we want nice pictures taken. So feel free to ask. We're not going to bite, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good rule of thumb for hallway shoots, especially because a lot of hallway photographers just take pictures of everything they see, and it goes really fast, and that's great. But then also dragging a cosplayer away from their friends and their food and asking them to do a photo shoot, like a separated photo shoot with them that might take half an hour, is really not okay. If you wanted to take a cosplayer aside, give them the opportunity to bring their friend, and you know, it'll just be a much better experience if you actually. Or
if they're not free to do it, you know, ask us like, hey, would you mind meeting up later? You'd be more willing to, because most of the time, pretty like 99.9% of the time, we'll be like, yeah, sure, you know, let's meet at time X, and I'll be more than happy to go shoot with you when, you know, I'm all cleaned up and ready to go.
One last thing I think is cosplayers also in this area and other areas as well have started having calling cards as well. It's kind of, you know, it seems a little bit elitist in some way to be like, here's my cosplayer card, but it is really, really useful, because a lot of the time if photographers sometimes have cards, but they don't really know who we are necessarily unless they look us up online, and sometimes it's really hard to find us online because we don't look the same all the time. So
what are you talking about? I wear this all the time.
Yeah. So if you have a little, basically all it is, I wish I had one with me right now, but I don't because I'm a bad cosplayer. Yeah, it's a little business card, presumably with your picture on it.
With Becca's picture on it.
Put that away. Okay. It's a picture, you know, it's a little card with your picture on it, presumably, and where you can be found online. Mine has my website URL on it, and that's all you really need, because you can go from my website to all my ACP and my Facebook page and my cosplay.com, and you can find me anywhere. But I mean, a lot of the time you can just put it right on the card for your DeviantArt and who you are. Even if you want to put your email address on it so they can just email you the photos, that's your prerogative. You can decide what to put on that. They're not that expensive. I get mine from Overnight Prints, and they cost like 20 bucks for like 150. And they're good quality. So it's, you know, it's not a bad investment to be able to make contacts that way. And then you can do photo shoots again because they know who you are.
Want to emphasize communication. This has kind of been a theme through a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, but to kind of summarize it, making sure expectations match. If it will take you 2 months to process the photos, that's probably okay if you tell the cosplayer ahead of time. If they expect it tomorrow and you know it's not going to be 2 months and you don't find this out until you're done with the shoot and they're mailing you the next day, that's bad. If they're asking you for the shoot and you know it's going to take you a month to get to it, and you say, we can shoot tomorrow, shoot next week, but it's not going to be for a month until you get that, either cosplay will say sure, and they probably will say sure, or they'll say, sorry, I need it for a contest that's closing in 3 days, and they'll find a different photographer, but either way you avoid a lot of hurt feelings. And just communication through the whole process. There are things that are obvious to photographers that should be obvious to everyone, but really aren't obvious. And likewise, cosplayers are things that are really obvious to you that may not be so obvious to non-cosplayers. Over communicating is always a good thing. Be very upfront through the whole process.
Just to add in real quick though, if it is going to take a long time to process a shoot, give us like a teaser photo.
Yeah.
That will totally tie us over until you get the shoot and be like, hey, I know it's taking me a while to get, you know, all these photos done, but I got this one done and I think it's really cool. If we just have one teaser photo, that will tie us over until we get the shoot. Teaser photos are awesome.
Yeah. So we can post it everywhere.
And speaking of processing time, yeah, plan your process. I know photographers who schedule how many shoots they do at Fanime based on how much time they have at Fanime. My bottleneck on Fanime now is not how much time I have during con, it's how much time I'm going to have after con to process the photos. Make sure that when you schedule a shoot, you're scheduling the time afterwards to process them. By the way, if you're not processing your photos, you're just posting them straight off your camera, stop right now. Learn to process your photos. The cameras will not put the best possible photos straight off the camera. Pretty much every photo you take can be made better with a minute or two, even in Lightroom or Photoshop. And the fancier your gear is, the more it needs processing, because they assume that if you bought this really fancy camera, you're going to take the time to post-process it. Every photo you look at on DA or Facebook that you look at and say, wow, that's really amazing, has been post-processed. Even if it doesn't look like it's been post-processed, it's been post-processed. If you don't post-process, you will not get those wow amazing shots. I guarantee you.
That is one more thing we can add to the annoying things photographers do list of not processing photos at all. Not even just taking forever to process them, but not processing them at all, posting them kind of as is. I don't want to remember all of my acne from this weekend. No. Please just go over it a little bit. Also, adjusting lighting is good. I mean, it's just nice to have a finished photo. Yeah.
And not posting every photo you take. It's great that you shot 200 photos. Really, no one wants to look through 200 photos of the same character.
It leads right into the next topic, post-processing.
Yeah, post-processing. Yeah, please pick out the 10 or 15 or 20 that are the best. There are some really awesome shots in there. No one will see the really awesome shots if they're buried among 180 average shots, or 160 average shots and 20 really awful shots. Find those 20 or 30 that are really awesome and post those, and then everyone will think you're a really awesome photographer because they didn't see the other 180 that sucked.
Another thing with the post-processing, should be a limit of shooping. When you start looking like a Barbie doll and you have no pores and you look like plastic and you look like something from Lady Gaga, that's probably when you should stop photoshopping. Just a little touch up here and there actually works long ways. Skin smoothing, zit removal is probably the best. Even if you don't have, like, if you're cosplaying a character and they have red eyes and you don't have contacts, because we all know how much contacts can be, just you can do a color change in Photoshop. It really does help just to do a little bit of post-processing afterwards, especially with just cleaning up the faces.
And post-processing is a diminishing returns. In the first minute, you get 60–70% of the benefit. First 5 minutes, you get 89% of the benefit, and you can process photo for several hours. But each additional time you spend on it makes it just a little bit better and a little bit better, a little bit better. So even if you spend a minute or two a photo, you're going to get most of the benefit of a full post-process. You get improved. Just going in and removing red eye. If the character isn't a demon, remove the red eye. Rotate it. No, I don't want to look at my photos this way. Rotate it. Contrast lighting. Zits. If you practice, you can practice doing this. Practicing the skill. Practice, practice, practice. There are lots of sites online that will help you with it. But nothing beats practice, practice, practice. You get to a minute or two a photo, you can get it from looking okay to looking really great.
Petra, what do you think?
Oh no, yeah, I'm totally down for just the the right amount of shooting. I don't want it's really great if I have this really awesome photo. My pose is great, my costume looks great, but it's like, man, I've got a zit on my side of the face that wasn't covered up. So, covering up acne, I don't want to look super, I don't overgo on the blur or smoothing tool. I don't want to look super smooth and plastic and stuff like that. But just, minimal amount of shooting is just the right amount where it looks natural and not like super fake, because no one likes to look super fake in their costume, because you'll have someone who maybe has never met you before as a cosplayer, they come up to you like, oh, you don't look anything like your photo. Because you don't look anything like your photo because it was overshot too much. So just do, a little goes a long way. Less is more.
Other things that make shoot more successful. We have been hitting on time, being on time. The cosplayers and photographers, that was the #1 complaint. We came up with the cosplayers on this panel came up with a list. The photographers on this panel came up with a list independently. We both came up with being on time as our number one annoyance. That's on time and ready to shoot. That's not, for a photographer, that's not on time and give me half an hour to assemble my lighting. And on the cosplayer, that's not on time, but here I'm still struggling into my gloves and still have to put on makeup, and I'm still fussing with my wig. On time is ready to shoot.
Yeah, and I think also with one thing cosplayers and photographers can do to make a shoot more successful is communicate beforehand about what you want to do. If it's a spontaneous photo shoot that just happens at the convention, then that's one thing. But if you have contact with the photographer beforehand and set up the shoot beforehand and can talk about what the pictures should look like at the end, then we can decide what kind of location we should go to, what type of lens he might want to bring, what type of lighting gear he might want to bring, or she might want to bring. And that will make you so much more prepared for this shoot, and so it'll make the photos match the costume, it'll match the location, it'll work out really well. I know that we can't always do that when it's spontaneous photo shoots, but if you have that opportunity, take it. Talk to your photographers, talk to your cosplayers.
Make sure the expectations match.
Yeah.
There was a maternity shoot. Someone said, hey, I want a maternity shoot. And to me, a maternity shoot means a naked belly, belly shots, studio, showing lots of skin, not necessarily, nudes, but showing lots of skin. And what the person had in mind was, oh, I'm going to wear an outfit and we're going to go around the park and we're going to shots that show the belly, but it's going to be outdoors and very outfit. Both are very great ways of doing maternity shoots, but it's a good thing we communicate ahead of time, because if I walked in expecting to do one kind of shoot and she wanted this other kind of shoot and we started shooting, it would have been very awkward. So we communicate ahead of time. Oh, maternity shoot, is this what you mean? And she said, no, this is what I mean. Good, okay, now I can plan for this and not this. And that's true of cosplay shoots too. Oh, this is going to be a dark, broody shoot. Okay, I'm going to bring the right lights for that, and the right lens. Oh, I want San Francisco in the background. Well, I better choose a location that I can see San Francisco and a lens that will let me pick that up, and so on. Anecdotes are successful shoots. Good to shoot someone well.
Okay, let's think about some shoots that have gone well. I can tell you about some shoots that have gone terribly. I think that if it doesn't go terribly, it goes fairly well. A good shoot, I think, the whole process is that we have talked beforehand about what costume is being photographed, where we're going to do the shoot. If we do an off-con shoot, like not at Fanime, not at the convention center, then we picked a location that is as appropriate as we can get in this area that we can either drive to or walk to or find, and that is reasonable. And then the equipment is the appropriate type of equipment. The photographer is prepared, knows how to use his equipment, has batteries.
And memory cards.
And memory cards, so that we can, keep the photos that we take. Let's just click the shutter a bunch of times and then go home. And that the cosplayer has been prepared with poses, knows how to interact with the location. I'm just doing an overview of a successful shoot. Yeah.
Photographers, think about what kind of shots you're going to want to do and bring the gear for that. If you're going to want wide-angle shots, wide-angle shots, bring the wide-angle lens. If you're going to be in close quarters, for example, bring the wide-angle lens. If you bring the long lens and you're in a small room, you're not going to get any shots. Likewise, if you're in a big park and you're shooting that's fairly crowded and you're shooting all wide-angle and you're picking up all the crowds, that sucks too. Think about the kind of shots that you're going to want to do. Go through your equipment whatever you have and figure out what's going to work best for that. Don't just grab everything because then you're going to get bogged down, but don't just randomly grab things and realize that isn't right for the kind of photos that you and the cosplayer want.
Mm-hmm. So one example of a successful shoot is one I did with Oscar a little over a year ago, no, a little less than a year ago. And it was a night shoot of a cyberpunk type of costume that I had, very computery wires. And so we did it on the futuristic bridge in Cupertino over the 280 freeway. And we did it at night because that bridge lights up at night. And so I was as prepared in costume as I could be because I had to put some of it on when I got there because I can't sit in a car. But Oscar picked his camera and his lens to pick up the dark sort of atmosphere, but also get a lot of the architecture going on without getting too much of the street light from below. And we ended up with some really cool shots.
And then we sat down together afterwards and picked out the photos that we both liked, and then processed them in a way that made both of us happy.
Yeah, it's good.
Model releases and legalities. Are we already going into that?
How are we doing on time? Is there a staff yet?
We're doing really good.
We're fine.
We're doing
Oh,
great.
okay. Oh,
We're doing really
wonderful.
great. Okay. Okay. So.
What is a model release? Why do I need that?
Before I talk about model, okay, so before I talk about model release, let's talk about copyrights. Sorry, this is okay, so I'm not a lawyer. I'm giving my understanding of the law as a non-lawyer. If you need legal advice, talk to a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Sorry, don't sue me. Okay. And that's actually the summary of most of the legal part in general. When you as a photographer take a photo, you own the photo. The cosplayer has no rights to that photo. So we're talking legally here. The cosplayer has no rights to that photo. They may have made the costume, they may be posing in it, but the law says that the owner of the photo is the photographer, period, copyright. The cosplayer may not do anything with that photo, except certain exceptions, without permission of the photographer. Generally, photographers, I don't recommend you stand on this. This is supposed to be a fun hobby. Give your cosplayers photos and let them give them contests and so on. But legally, you don't have to. If you're a jerk about it, though, no one will want to shoot with you. Yeah, that's true in general. That's true in general. But I'm talking about you're standing on your rights. Legally, I don't have to give you the photo. Yeah, well, legally they don't have to shoot with you next time. But yes, but that's true in general. If you act as a jerk in any part of this, no one will want to shoot. Word gets around. This is a small community. Word will get around.
We'll know.
And once you get a bad rap, it's really hard to lose it. Okay. So just because the photographer owns that photo doesn't mean they can do anything they want with it. There's the law generally divides photo use into editorial and commercial use. Commercial use does not mean making money off the photo. Selling a photo is not necessarily commercial use. This gets a lot of people tripped up. Commercial use is if you're using that image to promote a business or promote something. And to illustrate the difference, if I have a site and I do hallway photos of people and I promote it as, here are my photos of Fanime hallway, and I sell those photos, that's not commercial use of those photos. If I say, these are my photos of Bekalou, here's my site of Fanime featuring Bekalou, and advertise it as Fanime photos featuring Bekalou, and sell her photos, now it is commercial use, even though it's the same set of photos, taken the same way, because I'm now using her name and image to promote my site. And that's commercial. For commercial use, you need rights from the cosplayer for publicity rights. You own your rights for commercial use. People cannot use you in advertising without your permission. Model release is a grant of those rights to the photographer and a promise not to sue, generally. Basically grant saying, hey, here are these rights, so I can't sue you. Well, most of us, I don't know any cosplay photographer that uses the cosplay images in a commercial setting, so why do we ask for it? And the answer is to avoid lawsuits, because not everyone, I just explained the law, most people don't understand it, and if you're getting sued, you can win in the end after a year in court, and then go into this process of, oh no, that's not really commercial use, and get sued and go in front of a judge and do all that. Or you can say, here, you signed this form that said, you can do whatever you want with these photos, I can't sue, and that short circuits the process. The model release is there for the photographer basically to say, don't sue me, for people, because there's winning, because you don't want to win in court if it means you're spending $10,000 in a year in court. Maybe you'll eventually get those $10,000 back when you win, but it's better just not to go through that process and get the model release. There's gray areas. I kind of said this is definitely editorial, this is very commercial. There are gray areas. You really don't want to get dragged out in court and have to go through a trial about, is this really, is this bordering on commercial, is this really, is there an issue here? It just says, here, you know, we're not going to sue. Photographers, just because you have a model release, don't, even though you legally, again, don't be a jerk. Just because the cosplayer signed a thing saying they have no rights to it, don't sell that photo as like the next billboard for whatever wig product, with that wig or whatever, without asking the cosplayer. Just because you have the legal right, just because the model release says I have the legal right to do whatever I want with this photo, doesn't mean you should do anything with that photo. Use that as a, don't sue me, don't use that as a license to screw over the cosplayer. Excuse my language.
And I think that's sort of the purpose of this entire panel, is to how to cultivate really good relationships and have good, solid photo shoots that don't end in this type of problem at all. And it is important that we keep these things in mind, but mostly it's just good because cosplay and cosplay photography is a community, and we want to be able to cultivate good relationships in the community because it is a small community. We do talk to each other a lot, and so if you're a terrible person and you do not follow the good advice of this panel and other panels that might talk about it, then you will probably get a terrible reputation. You will not be able to get to shoot with the cosplayers you want to. You won't get those photos that you want, and it won't turn out well for you.
And no one's going to want to work with you.
And no one's
that
gonna
goes
wanna
for
work
both parties.
Yeah.
Oh, and Dana reminded me, if you're a minor, parents need to sign the model release. If you're a cosplayer and you're signing a model release, read the model release. It probably will say, I waive all rights to the photos forever and ever and ever under all circumstances, and more legalese to that effect. if it's a photographer you don't know and trust, a photographer you don't know and you don't trust that they're not going to go and do weird things with the photos, then you don't have to sign it. Of course, they may not shoot you if they won't sign it, but know what you're signing away, and you are trusting that the photographer is not, if you sign a model release, you are trusting that the photographer isn't going to go and abuse the rights from the model release. If you don't trust the photographer, don't sign it. It is you're waiving a lot of rights, and legally, they could do a lot of things with that photo that may not make you happy. So make sure you trust the photographer. Photographers, I keep saying, don't abuse that. Don't. Even though you can, you've got that nice model release, and someone's offering $1 million for that photo of the cosplayer. Ask them first before you sell it. And split, you know. And even though you legally don't have to, if you're getting $1 million for your cosplay photo, give some of that money to the cosplayer.
We'll appreciate it.
We will use it to make more costumes that you can take more photos of.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we're done with our stuff to talk about, but we have a nice 15 minutes, almost 15 minutes to take questions. So do you have any questions? Oh, lots of people. Yes, sir. Yeah. You can ask more than one at a time.
One of the rules I learned from a young age is never ever take a picture of a minor without their legal guardians specifically planned. Is that for all of you as well?
Okay, so we're talking about legally or morally. So legally, if they're in public or at a public event, you can. Now you can't use it for commercial use, but legally you're okay. Morally, ethically, especially if it's a younger, I mean, if it's like a 17-year-old, you know, it's a different story. If it's like a little, you know, grade school kid, ask. It's the right thing to do, even if the law doesn't say you have to do it.
Yeah, never take a picture of minors without the guardian or there, and specifically when they can.
I mean, it depends on the context. If you're at a kid's birthday, if you're at your kid's birthday party and there are a bunch of kids running around and you're taking pictures at your kid's birthday party, you know, do you need to ask every parent at that kid's birthday party, oh, can I take a picture of your kid? Probably not. Some parents may go ballistic on it and you just don't post their kids' photos or take them down if they ask. To be nice, again, not that you're legally required to, but it's good to be polite even if you're not legally required to.
Better safe than sorry.
But yeah, if you see a cosplayer that's a kid, you know, a 6-year-old cosplayer wandering around, hopefully with their parents, ask the parent before you shoot the kid. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is for you cosplayers. Do you consider yourself artists?
Do we consider ourselves artists?
I would definitely say so. I mean, this hobby requires a lot of, I mean, let's see, how do I phrase this? A lot of knowledge, a lot of innovation. You got to get really creative with a lot of, it varies on each project that you do. It's definitely an art form, I would say, for sure, because it requires a lot of different skills, sewing, working with various kinds of material for making props. Hell, even wig work could be considered an art, because that wig work takes a lot of time too.
Yeah, and then there's a difference between skill and art, because I mean, there's the art aspect of imagination, and then there's the art aspect of skill. And I think that on the imagination side of things, no, we don't necessarily make up the design. We take it out of an anime or a manga or a game or something that inspires us to want to be that character and dress up as them. But to translate something from either computer generated or hand drawn work to a real life thing takes a lot of imagination. And so yeah, in that way it is art, because you can't necessarily look at a picture and say, it's made of these fabrics and obviously this type of material, I'm just going to go get that and do that. You get to use your own imagination, and you get to make your own choices, and that's where the artistry comes from. Because if you look at two cosplayers cosplaying the same character, they're not gonna look the same. Their costumes are gonna have different detailing, different materials, different methods of being made, and that's where the art comes in.
And that's probably one of the best things about the hobby is that you can take a little bit of artistic liberty and bring, I think that's probably the main thing, that we bring something 2D, we bring a physical form to it. Unless, the series has an art book that legitimately says like, oh, this character's jacket is made out of leather. You have some people who are super accurate to the series and like, okay, I'm gonna make this jacket out of leather. But you have some people, I actually really admire Becca here for, she's probably one of the people who takes a lot of really artistic leaps and bounds, and you can definitely see it in all of her work. So I would definitely call us artists.
Can we take, well, does somebody else have a question and then we can get back? Yeah, so right here.
Question about the model release. Do you have any issues in terms of the signature use? Does that be the real person's name? You ask for a photo ID or anything?
I don't ask for photo ID. I do need the real person's name. If you're shooting with me at OffCon, I hope you trust me with your real name. I used to ask for address. I don't ask for address anymore. I just need real name and email address. And if you're minor, of course, parent signature too. But yeah,
Follow-up then. The wording of the model release, can you just go with boilerplate, or is there a customized one?
Boilerplate, you can find boilerplate online, and that should be good enough. I mean, the hope is to forestall a lawsuit. You don't want it to be completely legally awful, but hopefully it will never be tested in court anyways. Hopefully people will remember they signed the model release, and that will short-circuit the process.
I was just thinking of cosplayer-friendly model release that keeps being sued, but not getting fully used.
However, yeah, I mean, if you want to contact a lawyer or a legal aid and get custom wording, sure, but you can use it. But I generally use boilerplate. Next question.
Yeah.
This one. Okay.
Oh, cool.
I actually wanted to comment on yours. I feel like cosplay is a living kind of art, kind of like a geisha, where you're showing the art on your body. So you're wearing a painting, kind of.
You are the art.
That is an awesome description. I like that.
Yeah. And then you guys can comment on this. As a cosplayer, sometimes when the photographer doesn't have a lot of time or just doesn't have the skill in Photoshop, the cosplayer you can give permission to the cosplayer to do the photoshopping for you, which is an excellent option, I think.
Yeah, I feel
and they may see things on themselves that they want to change that you may not see. So just keep an open mind to the cosplayer working on the photo also.
With that though, make sure you get the permission from the photographer, because sometimes you'll get one and they say, oh, can I fix it? And they change it like so radically different, and then your copyright's on that and you don't like it as a photographer, and they come back and says, oh, well, your photography sucks because this person did a horrible thing to your image.
Communication ahead of time. If you know you might want to Photoshop it afterwards, tell them, hey, would you mind giving me the images afterwards, and I'm going to post-process them. And if the photographer says, no, absolutely not, I never let people do that, either you're going to have to live with that or find a different photographer who will let you do that.
Right, and send it back to the photographer and get their written approval that they said this is okay.
Yep.
I approve of this photo.
Yeah.
You in the back right there.
Walk up to the microphone.
Last question then.
My question is about like networking with cosplayers. I'm a photographer, but I'm still pretty new to this. So this is my 4th convention overall. The thing is, I don't really know how to meet cosplayers for the convention. To schedule photo shoots or stuff like that.
Definitely check out the, pretty much every convention now has some kind of forum.
Okay.
And usually there is a big cosplay section where you'll find most people listing gathering times and stuff like that. A lot of the times you'll find usually a thread for cosplayers to post and be like, hey, I'm looking for a photographer to shoot with. That's always a good place to start. Yeah. Cosplay.com is another good place. AC Paradise. You can even browse Facebook fan pages, because a lot of cosplayers now either have a separate Facebook account or they have the fan page, and you can always go and check out. If you have maybe a cosplayer you would like to shoot, you always send them a message and be like, hey, I'm a big fan of your work. Maybe I'm starting out. If you're willing to give me a chance, I would love to shoot you sometime. That's always a good way of doing it.
And gatherings. And when you go to gatherings, don't just shoot. meet people, socialize, say hi, how are you doing? Oh, nice costume. Get to know people. A lot of finding cosplayers is getting to know as people and saying hi and meeting them, not just, hey, let me take a few shots, goodbye, I'm on to the next person. Business cards. Oh, yeah. Damon, you have something you want to add on this? Business card, yeah. By the way, I have business cards if you want them. We need to wrap up here because they are flashing the right card at us. We will be outside to answer more questions. Anyone?
Oh yeah, Oscar and I both do gatherings. Oscar covers NorCal gatherings, and I cover Bay Area conventions. You can find Bay Area conventions on Facebook, and we do like monthly gatherings. You can network there.
And fill out comment cards. There's comment cards in the hallway. Fill out the comment
We want
cards.
to hear feedback.
How great this panel was.
If you post, tell them how great this panel is. They'll let us do it next year.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming, everyone.